Hello everyone and welcome to BrickStars. In today's video, we're going to be wrapping up our LEGO Castle Basketball League. So if you've been following us for a while, you know we've released a couple videos already looking at all the different castle factions, or most of them. And you can see we've already released a bunch of the teams. The goal is to kind of bring these factions into life as sports teams. So we've got a couple more to go and we're gonna finish them all off in this video, and stay tuned till the end to see which faction was our favorite overall and a full view of every single team. I'm super excited for this video. This has been a long time coming. You can see some of the designs we've already released. It's been a lot of work designing these, creating the uniforms, bringing an identity and a brand to each one of them. And I think throughout the process, we've actually gotten better as designers. So I'm really looking forward to sharing the designs today with you. Starting off with the Tournament Knights. This was a very interesting one for us because it's kind of a lesser known faction, maybe because we almost made it up ourselves, but it refers to the old, perhaps first LEGO castle sets. You can see here they've got a jousting tournament happening here. Very simple minifigures, but very iconic for LEGO castle fans. And what we tried to do here was really work on the simple geometry of the sets and the shield. You can see here it's just kind of a checkerboard style, and really work with the colors to make it unique. So we pulled the black, the red, the gold, and kind of made it a little bit of our own. So you can see the overall sheet here. I think this horse and knight turned out great, especially because I think it's very geometric in nature, which is kind of how those sets were. So it's a perfect fit. A little bit bold on the design, but I think it works. I love it. I love how the colors worked out. The black, gold, the dark burgundy there. And just really neat to see when a team has, you know, a uniform one color and then the word mark is on a different color. And I like these shorts. I think they look pretty cool. I can see them kind of being unique and different. And the color scheme very reminiscent of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So they're known for using that dark red, gold, and black. So I think it's a unique color scheme in sports. On the alternate, we tried to do something a little bit different, just focusing in on those colors again, nothing too crazy. But on the city uniform, this one is heavily inspired by kind of the canopy and the horse barding that we see from the original Tournament Knights joust set. You could argue this could perhaps make a good uniform for the US men's basketball team if we just put USA on the front there. But I think it's a pretty clean look, and I do like how this dark red pops against the blue. So that's the Tournament Knights. You can see the full set here. This one was a lot of fun to design, and again, one of those factions that maybe a lot of people haven't really heard of or seen the sets or knights that come with that theme. Next up, the Fright Knights. This one I'm almost certain a lot of you have heard about and are no strangers to Basil the Batlord. You can see here we've kind of got almost a 90s style logo, very Batman like obviously, but I really love how this alternate logo turned out. You can see we drew inspiration from the shield and just added a simple basketball silhouette, but I think it works perfectly in for this team. And the full set here, you can see we've got a little alternate logo as the mask piece for Basil the Batlord, one of my favorite parts that LEGO's released. And I just love how the font worked out here. I think it's got that scary look, and I want to share the uniform details with you guys. We've put a lot of effort into these ones, obviously inspired by the new Basil the Batlord CMF minifigure and a bat itself. You can see we've got kind of these wing details throughout the uniform, and really kept it clean with white, black, and silver accents on the uniform, but then used the red to kind of pop off with the numbers and the word mark and just that touch of gold around. And then this waistband obviously drawing inspiration from details on the minifigure. So I think it's a pretty cool looking set. And I do like how it turned out on the road uniform as well. Has that touch of gray around the word mark. But that red is really bright and sharp and sticks out. So really happy with how that one turned out. And then this one is a bit simpler on the jersey, but the shorts to me, I just love when designs come together and when simplicity takes hold. Like we used Willa the Witch here as the inspiration. Obviously she's got a spider icon on her necklace there. We've kind of rendered a sporty looking one for the waistband, and the detail on her gown, dress piece, whatever it is, we've included that on the shorts, and I think it looks really sharp and complements the home and road uniform perfectly. And I just love how mean it looks with the black and the red. And on the city uniform, we did something a little bit different. We went with the gradient look, and we incorporated the iconic box art from the Fright Knights. One of my favorite looking box arts. I love that era of Lego when they used natural pieces, if you will, to kind of display the Lego. It's kind of what we try and do in our photography. And you know, another design I had for this as a concept was to use maybe the barding details, but I think the box art works here, and it was kind of a challenge to get it to blend nicely, but pretty happy with how that one came out. So looking at the full set, here are the Fright Knights. Next up, the Wolf Pack. And these guys have come back with a lot of popularity with the CMF figure. I'm very pleased with how this wolf silhouette worked out. It's always a challenge working with icons that are pretty common and popular. You can see there's a lot of Husky sports logos, whether it's from the NCAA or the NBA itself. You could argue these ones are pretty similar, and it is difficult to be fully unique, but I think this wolf head is recognizable and unique enough. And I do love the color balance between the black, the gray, the brown there. And this eye patch detail was a little bit of a fun design, taking inspiration from the shield. And the Wolfpack minifigure that stands out to me is this guy with the eye patch. So I thought it'd be pretty cool to give the wolf an eye patch. Obviously very unrealistic, but we are making sports logos out of Lego factions, so we can't take things too seriously. Here's a quick look at the overall logo sheet. I do love the word mark as well. Very kind of old medieval style, and the colors work really good. On the home uniform, big focus obviously on the brown and red and black, and you can see in the details here close up, we tried to kind of have this engraved pattern to mimic wolf fur. I think it's a pretty cool touch and more of a modern design. And again, the color balance on the uniform I think works really well. I do like that the red is just ever so slightly there but pops off the jersey. And the road uniform also kind of darker a bit, which is what we wanted. And you can see these details here on the side actually take inspiration from the new very popular Wolfpack CMF minifigure. I think it worked out great. One of my favorite sets. Nothing too crazy on the alternate. We tried to use the wolf as an icon here instead of the word mark because I think it really stands out. And on the city uniform, something a little bit different. We've taken that wolf fur pattern and put it all across the uniform, but the side panels are a very slight nod and an inspiration from the Wolfpack crossing here. You can see this set was known for having these distinct black walls with these stones, which we've incorporated to on the bottom with the shorts, and then these red roofs on top, which it works really cool here. I love, and it lines up with the number. It's simple, it's bold, it stands out. And again, it's what we're trying to do with this whole redesign, is take inspiration from the minifigures, from the sets, from the overall look of the theme and the faction, and I think we've nailed that here with the Wolfpack. Next up, the Elves. This is another one where maybe you could argue, why did you guys include this one? They only had the one CMF figure that they released, but He is one of my favorite CMF minifigures, so I just had to do it. It kind of gives me Forestman vibes, kind of gives me Lord of the Rings vibes, and that's what I tried to capture here, especially with the word mark. Really pleased with how that turned out. Obviously, the logo itself is taken from this piece on his belt, and just a simple basketball silhouette there, but I think it worked out pretty good. And I really just wanted the uniforms to be more simple and classy, focusing on the beautiful colors, the dark green, the mint green, that pop of, I call it kind of a leather brown. And we've included the details from the shield ever so slightly in the side panels, which I think is a nice touch. And that carries through on both the home and road uniforms. And another look at that word mark, just very fitting for the name Elves. The alternate uniform uses that mint green, one of my favorite colors. I could just imagine a team wearing this. I think it looked pretty clean, especially if they had like warm-up gear that went along with it. And then something different on the city uniform, taking inspiration from the shield design. Perhaps a little too bold, maybe too messy, but sometimes we have to have fun with it and try something a bit crazy, and that's what happens in sports too. Not every uniform is a fan favorite, but it's something different. You can see the full set here again, working with the dark green, mint green, white, and that touch of orange, leather brown. I think they look pretty sharp. Next up, the Bull Knights. This is another one I'm pretty proud of. I love how the bull turned out, the word mark pops. I love how the lines just seem to all flow together really nicely. That's something that I think is tough to achieve in sports designs, but in this one, it works. The balance of the logo, and there's almost depth to it with the swords in the back and the bull, and the alternate logo as well, equally as strong, very distinct. Obviously, when you're designing a team named the Bulls, you're going to have competition from the Chicago Bulls. But I don't know. I think, obviously, this is an iconic, legendary logo. But I think these Bull logos stand up. Like, they are more modern. They've got more detail. I actually like how strong the neck looks on these ones. So again, I'm really proud with it. There's some subtle details here from the faction as well that we'll get into. But let's take a look at the logo sheet as a whole. And we've got black, I call this graphite, dark gray, red, and gold, trying to use colors from the shield and the minifigures in the faction. And the home uniform, obviously taking inspiration from the shield design. We kind of really like this, this look here, and a lot of gold focus, but keeping the black and red throughout. And you'll see here on the road uniform, we decided to go with the graphite. Black would have been the maybe natural choice, but I think using the arm color from this, Cedric's eyes, and you can see the bull logo itself kind of has the same neck piece that Cedric the Bull has. And of course, this kind of medallion here is featured throughout the identity here on the waistband. So really pleased with how this one turned out. And again, the graphite is something unique in the league that we've designed. So we kept the black for the alternate uniform, just focusing on these red chevron shapes throughout. And how could you have a team named the Bulls and not have a red uniform? So again, carrying these kind of chevrons throughout, some more of that pattern that we saw on the home and the road, and using this logo that I think is pretty iconic on the front there. So overall, pretty sharp set. I think the colors work here, and yeah, that's the Bulls. One of my favorite designs that we've knocked out. Next up, these guys actually battled the Bulls. These are King Leo's Lion Knights. Some of you will obviously recognize the blue and gold shield here. It's something that we wanted to carry throughout. We wanted to give them really regal look and focus on the color blue and yellow. So I think we've done that here. And you can see this castle set. They're battling the Bulls. You can see they've got insignia all over the place. The lion, the yellow crosses are everywhere. So that's what really inspired the home uniform. And we've kept it classy with the side panels, but we had to throw in that yellow cross. And you know, at first I didn't love this, but I think it works. I think if a team released this, it's something that would, you know, stand out and be unique and kind of create a brand of its own. And I do love the color balance between the blue, black, and that touch of gold around the word mark. Similar thing here on the road uniform, and obviously taking inspiration from King Leo himself. I love how the shield looks on a blue background, so that's why we've kept it on the blue here on the waistband. And our own lion head on the shorts I think is pretty sharp, and we decided to use gray here for the numbers, obviously drawing from the minifigure, but also the set. Obviously it's a gray walled castle, so that's a little bit of a nod to that. And that's where the alternate comes into play as well. And here we've got a little fun detail on the shorts, drawing inspiration from the flag piece from the set. I think it's amazing that Lego used to give us these kind of unique flag pieces, so we wanted to pay respect to that. And just a nice color balance on this uniform. And the city uniform, another blue uniform, not something we do very often. We usually like to kind of include a different color, and maybe black would have worked here, or red. But I did want to focus on the blue and incorporate the main banner of the Lion Knights throughout. I had a couple designs where I worked the banner on the full uniform, but I think having it kind of in a limited capacity here actually makes it show a bit better. So that's the city uniform, and there's our full set. Don't mind the fact that we forgot to label them the Lion Knights here. We'll move on from that to the Scorpions. Okay, who are the Scorpions? So this was a theme that kind of came out in the early 2000s, I think, known for Vladik and his knights, and they used this dark red black color scheme. This is one that I loved how the design worked out. The word mark, you can see it kind of has a scorpion look to it. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe the stinger, the hands, the claws. But overall, I think the balance throughout worked really great on this one. And the short design is the focus point here. Obviously, the jersey itself is very simple, but the shorts kind of play in with that stinger and word mark. And just a really, really clean look. You can see here we chose dark red for the torso to mimic the knights. They had a lot of black and gray throughout, but I think we didn't want to overdo black. What you'll find in sports design is black uniforms are very popular. They generally always look good, so it's not as much of a challenge. We like to try and use other colors from the faction to make things work, and using the scorpion from the torsos themselves on the waistband is a little nod to the faction. Like I said, here's the black alternate. Of course, we had to do it with the scorpions because it's one of their main colors. And in this case, we've actually just got a big scorpion on the shorts that I think looks pretty cool. This is a team that I kind of imagined they'd be almost like a small market team, but produce really good basketball, kind of like the San Antonio Spurs. And you can see this gray uniform very similar to the Spurs, a bit more modern in having a huge scorpion on the jersey, but I could see this being a fan favorite, just something simple but distinct and bold. So overall, the Scorpions, I think they turned out pretty good. I like how the word mark is sloped, but we've got one that matches the logo. Cool looking set. The Vikings. Okay, what are the Vikings? Who are the Vikings? Well, Lego throughout its history has kind of released the Vikings in a couple different iterations. You can see they've had the shields from the castle lineup of Vikings. They've had collectible minifigure series Vikings all throughout. So This one was a challenge mixing the different colors and what to use, but we just kind of wanted to capture the spirit of this, you know, Viking warrior, the shield, the emblem, and there's a lot of different colors that we experimented with for the brand, but at the end we opted for navy and white. And you can see what I was talking about. They had the original Vikings faction, which actually I think did fall under the castle lineup, which is why we've included them here. But more recently, they've released these Viking, they had the Viking medieval warship and then the Viking village. And of course, this Viking CMF, one of my favorite minifigures, so I had to use the shield design from there. But as for the design of the uniforms, we kept it kind of clean, just had these almost Viking style knots, whatever they're called, I forget the name now, but throughout. And you can see we've kept the navy, the red, touches of gold, pretty clean. On the away uniform, the same thing. Kind of gives me Denver Nuggets vibes with the simplicity of the colors on the uniforms, which is not a bad thing. Denver is a great team. And on the alternate, that's where we had a little bit of fun with it. One of my favorite color combos is green and gold, green and yellow, and the Vikings released this shield in that color, so we've got a bit of a different word mark here, and recolored the logos to make them match this alternate uniform. And then on the city uniform, kind of a similar thing, went maybe a little bit too crazy, but we've got the Viking shield designs throughout the uniform. And you can see here we've given a nod to these shields that are just beautiful. I'd really like to add these into my collection, but for now I've just used them in the design here. So that's the Vikings. Moving it along to the Bear Knights. This is another one that is maybe a bit less known because it was just featured in a CMF. But I do love the colors and I do love the minifigure, and like I was saying with the Wolves, it's sometimes tough to get away from looking too similar to other teams, but I love this retro Memphis Grizzlies, Vancouver Grizzlies logo, so I do see the similarities, but we did design all our logos ourselves, and that's how we got to the Bears. You can see we've played on the red and dark red, taking inspiration from the shield, the two colors, and focusing on the green and gray that's featured on the minifigure. So speaking of the minifigure, here he is. You can see the side panels kind of have this spikiness to them, which draws inspiration from the torso, and obviously the shorts mimic his weapon of choice. And then the back is a little bit of a play on the shield, kind of using that dual color there. I think it works. It's a modern looking design. It's clean in the front, but the color balance, especially on the home and the road, I think is great. Again, you see the minifigure there. He looks mean. It's kind of dark. I think his name was actually the Tournament or Frightening Knight. I can't remember exactly, but really pleased with how this turned out. And then on the alternate, of course, we had to use the red from the shield, but going a little bit more bold, having that design throughout. And we did a similar thing on the city uniform, but we brought back the green in terms of this chevron up here and on the shorts there, but it really pops with the red. So I think overall their selection of the 4 uniforms, I think gives them a pretty good lineup. Moving on to the Trolls. This may be my favorite logo of the bunch. I think the word mark and the troll warrior turned out great, and he's a bit unique. He doesn't match the minifigures precisely, and kind of gives me vibes of the bad guys, the aliens from the Looney Tunes, kind of like big, mean, and scary looking. So that's the Trolls. You can see this partial logo, just the troll head. I love the shape and how it worked out. And then we've kind of got the letter T created here from the horns of the trolls. So this was a popular faction. I love this faction. I wish I had some more sets from this faction. And they kind of battled the Crown Knights. So you can see their sets had a lot of spikes and flames and different things. And the Troll King himself had this kind of jaggedy cape. So that's where a lot of the inspiration from the design comes from. You can see we've kind of got the jaggediness here on the sides, and then it ends up with these spikes up top. And then the colors really focus on that brown and mint green, which draws from the minifigures, and then the black to just kind of pop off the jersey. Of course, the waistband here draws inspiration from the minifigure torsos. They had this badge, you can see that throughout. And the brown color, again, drawing inspiration from the minifigures. So I do like how the uniforms turned out. But again, I think the logos here are pretty good. And on the city uniform, we've taken inspiration from another CMF minifigure, which took inspiration from the trolls. You can see Lego brought back kind of this big jawed icon and badge there as well. So we've pulled the dark red from here, which I think works great with this kind of olivey green gold color. And of course the chest, very much drawing inspiration from the minifigure. And then I love how this effect turned out, having a bit of that jaggediness on these outlines for the uniform. So really pleased with how the trolls turned out. Then we've got the lions again. So you can see there's Lego's brought back the lions a couple times, and we've tried to give each lion faction its own distinct look, whether it's, you know, a bit classic, regal, or, you know, very professional and clean looking. Of course, anytime you're dealing with lions, the whole goal is to look regal. So they've got some similarities, but I think they're different enough. And, you know, we've given them kind of different names in some respects to make them a bit more unique. But I'm excited to share the last lion faction with you. And this is from one of my favorite castle themes, the Kingdoms lineup, which I think was the last castle theme that we've received. And really wanted to play on the red and white here without going too crazy. Instead, we've got more of like a subtle imprint on the uniform, drawing from the king's torso details. And then the red, black, and gold, I think, just pops so clean. And we've got a bit of that checkeredness on the word mark there. So, and of course on the partial logo too, we've got the red and white, and you can see it carries over onto the road, which I think it looks super clean. Really happy how this one turned out. And then on the alternate, we did something a bit different. I think this kind of dark red, almost purple color does appear a bit on the minifigure, so we've got that going on this one, but nothing too crazy. Simple piping and waistband details, but the colors, the black, the gold, the red, really pop on this one. And then on the city uniform, we've used the color gold and kind of drawn inspiration from the barding, but also this iconic Kingdoms Joust set. So we just wanted to give it, you know, make it look like it's a scene at the joust. And I do love how the colors on this one worked out, with the gold being the focus and then just red and white accented by silver ever so slightly. So that is the lions, the Lion Knights. Either or, I think they look great. And now one of our favorites, how they turned out, the Dragon Masters. I love this logo because it's kind of cartoony, kind of almost video game vibe to it, but this one was tricky to work with because the faction itself has a lot of different colors. It was kind of all over, but I'm really pleased with how this turned out. And you know, we've got some of our own logos to go along with it. The word mark, kind of Dragon Ball Z vibe to it, but I'm really excited to share how this one turned out. Again, working with the minifigures as the inspiration, we've got the red and white kind of balance throughout. You can see these flames coming from the dragon's mouth. We've worked those into the shorts, and then we've got our own designed Lego dragon here, the iconic, legendary, old 90s green dragon piece. And then we've pulled this head in a limited capacity on the waistband and on the top there. But I do love how, you know, we didn't go crazy with splitting the jersey in 2 colors, but it's got the red and black duality throughout, and then just a little nod of blue to capture from the minifigures that pops out as well. And then on the road uniform, they're mean, it's in black, but it's got a lot of that red and blue throughout. And this piping detail here, these colors kind of remind me of, you know, the Allen Iverson Philadelphia 76ers, which I think was a very iconic looking set. So really pleased with how this turned out. And I do like how we've got the curve here for the jersey lining up with the word mark. Everything seems to float together nicely. On the alternate, one of my favorite designs because I love simplicity. This drawing inspiration from the cape here, and they had a flag as well. That was just, you know, a yellow field with a red border. That's what we've got here. And then this iconic looking old school dragon design. I don't think you need anything else. I think it works great. And we've pulled the dragon from their shield on the shorts. One of my favorite looking sets, and especially as an alternate uniform, something that would be worn occasionally, I think it works perfect. And then something a little bit more fun on the city uniform. Magisto the Wizard, he was, I think, kind of the leader of these Dragon Masters. A very iconic Lego minifigure, very simple looking minifigure, but so we've taken inspiration, obviously using the blue for that. I love how his hat turned out as just kind of a line detail here. And then the number on the jersey kind of replaces Magisto's head, but we've got the iconic beard and hat up top there, and the star takes reference from his wand. And then he had a black cape, so we decided to put the name on the back in black, just kind of as an homage to the black cape. And then you see his gold belt buckle there. That's what we've got here, so a little pop of yellow. But overall, I think it works as a city uniform. Generally, city uniforms are replaced more frequently by a team, so that's why you can have a little bit more fun with the design itself. And that is, or those are, the Dragon Masters. That's probably my favorite design that we've got out of the whole lineup, which, speaking of them, here they are. All of the teams that we've designed. It's been, you know, a couple months on and off working through this. So thank you guys for following along and watching us release the teams. And again, keep your eye out for the polls. We're gonna see which design of each team is the most popular, and then almost have kind of like a playoff to see which team you guys think is the best overall design. But you know, for me, it was tough to choose. I love the Wolf Pack. I love, like I said, the Dragon Masters, the Bulls. Overall, we put a lot of effort into each and every one of them. So we do appreciate you guys watching these videos and following along. So again, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.